February 1st, 2024, Webster Town Board meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dolly, can you please take roll?
Supervisor Flaherty.
Here.
Councilwoman Cataldi.
Present.
Councilman Cahill.
Here.
Councilwoman Wynn.
Here.
Councilwoman Wright.
Here.
Town Attorney Genesi.
Present.
Okay, we have a pretty robust agenda tonight, and it starts out with what I think the majority of you are here for, the public hearing. This public hearing is to consider a local law to repeal in its entirety Chapter 103 of the Code of the Town of Webster, Aircraft, Airports, and Heliports. Now, I think this is great to have this many people at the board. I'm sure we can pack them in every meeting like this. How many people have never been to a public hearing, a municipal public hearing? Honesty, honesty, I love it. Okay, well then, I'd rather err on the side of caution and just make sure that everybody has an idea of kind of the rules of engagement, at least of the public hearings here at the Town of Webster. Now, when I drop the mallet, we'll be opening the public hearing, and at that point, in the order that people signed in, we will have them come up to the podium. The only time that you can speak is from the podium, and I call this the decorum thing, which unfortunately in our society, social media maybe is ruining decorum, but I would hope that everybody would understand, really you can't be talking, yelling, or anything pro, con from the audience. The speaking in a public hearing takes place at that podium. Please have your thoughts when you take the podium gathered, because once you're done and you sit back down, there is no, I was thinking of something else. Can I get back up there 3 speakers later? Once done, you're done. After all the people that have signed in have spoken at the podium, I will then read off what it looks to be right now, Dolly, to be 6 to 7 written statements that came in from citizens over the last couple of weeks that could not attend tonight, so they put in writing, and those will be read into the public record. Just like everybody's comments tonight will be in the public record from the podium. When everybody's done, the mallet will go down, and that will end the public hearing. At that point, the town board has the option to have some discussion or things of that nature, or we could just be done and move on. Because one thing I will make very clear is that there will be no town action on this tonight. Now, some people reached out to me today and said, in more words or less, I saw that you put a resolution on the agenda for next week to vote on this repeal. And there was a feeling that this might be a fait accompli, that the public hearing is a ruse because we're going to do it, but then we're going to vote. That's not how it works. We put the agenda item of a vote on this next week because over the next 2 months, the only time that this town board will all be together, all 5 of us, are on February 8th and February 22nd. On February 15th, I will be out of town, and I don't think it's fair to have something of this magnitude, proven by how many people are here tonight, be voted at a town board meeting that has 4 town board meeting members at it. And for the whole month of March, we will have no more than 4 town board members at each of those meetings. So the next full town board meeting would be in April. And I can assure you that none of you nor this board wants to drag this out until April. So, next Thursday, here are the possible outcomes of a vote on this. And if you've been to town board meetings and you've seen resolutions, you could have where the board decides, we're not going to make a motion. we don't want to move on this. That would be tantamount to saying, we've decided we're not voting on repealing 103. Translation, 103 stays intact. A second option is that we could table it. We could table it until February 22nd because the board wants to get some more facts and make sure that they're making an informed decision within their vote. A third option is that somebody could make a motion to repeal it, it be seconded, and if it gets 3, 4, or 5 votes, then it will be repealed. Is that correct, Charlie?
Correct.
This is not a supermajority like a
No.
budget having going over the 2%. And then, if you've been watching town board members, someone could make a motion to say we keep 103, which, and if that passes, that's tantamount to no vote. So there's a lot of things that could happen next week or the week of the 22nd. So like I said, I'd rather err on the side of caution to everybody in the room about how this works tonight and how it will work subsequent to tonight, so there's no misconceptions. And that might even change what I just said, how you approach that podium and what you were going to say. Now, there are, what did we come up with? Are we up to 20 people that signed in? Is that correct? Did I do the math correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 people. Now, we had advertised that you have up to 5 minutes on the podium. I have the unenviable job, and I got to figure out how to delegate this off in the future, Charlie. You know, this is year 5 of me being supervisor. I can't believe I still do this. I have the unenviable job of telling you when you're at 4:45. There's no nice way to say that. Now, I also have what I consider to be executive privilege, and we enacted this on a June 8th meeting at Webster Thomas when we saw that there was 40 people that signed up to talk at the podium. Now, do the math. If everybody takes 5 minutes, that's 200 minutes, and that's 200 minutes with not going to sit back down and not the next person coming up and shuffling papers. So, with 20 people signed in, if everybody takes 5 minutes, we're at 100 minutes, probably 2 hours for this public hearing. So I don't know what you were thinking when you came here, but if you're one of the last people, you would be here until 9:30 for the public hearing. Because of that, I am going to make that executive decision that I'm going to time you at 3 minutes. Now, if that's upsetting, and what, did I stutter when I said no comments from the crowd? The decorum? This is a civil meeting. We are not going to have those comments from the crowd. If you have written statements there and you can't get them done in 3 minutes, we will make sure that they're into the public record so that the town board, when they go to discern. But I think for pragmatic sake and for everybody's getting them out of here before the snow falls, I hope that you can get your comments done in 3 minutes. With that being said, without further ado,
Can I add one thing?
please do,
I just wanna let-
Deputy Supervisor.
I just want to let everyone know that we need your name and address when you get up to the podium to speak.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't have that written down in my list. So, Dolly, we are going to open the public hearing at 7:40. And the first speaker is David Vega.
Good evening, thank you for letting me speak. Before I start this, I would have thought that maybe this would have been rescheduled at a different time and be chosen, seeing that the audience that everyone should have expected. But that's besides the point. The fact that we're here tonight to even discuss repealing an entire chapter for a few individuals' hobbies is mind-numbing.
David, before you get going, can you state your just name and address for the record, please?
David Vega, 1153 Bay Road, Western. To repeal Chapter 103 and open the ability to build an airport and or even land a helicopter within town Rochester has many surrounding other options available. I sat here 3 years ago trying to ask for a 6-foot fence to be placed on my property line. That got denied, but yet we're here talking about allowing the repeal of entire chapter or law. It's unacceptable. I've read chapter 103 many times, just trying to understand what in the chapter does not make sense, trying to understand, other than personal conveniences and hobbies, why does this chapter need to be changed? All town employees sitting here today have a responsibility to keeping the community safe. How? By laws and codes that you do not allow or allow. Chapter 103 does exactly that. It even states in 103-30, the legislative intent, the purpose of this chapter is to address the operation of private airports, heliports, and operation of private aircraft in the town of Webster, and to provide protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the town. I assume that also means for property values, noise, why this was created. I want to know what has changed in regards to our safety. What now in the chapter is not worth protecting? I don't want to hear other communities or towns have different variations of law, and we should follow their lead. This is about the town of Webster, not other communities. This chapter needs to stay in place. And like I said in my last meeting, just because you can do it, doesn't mean you should. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Next up is Nancy Braley.
Hello, my name is Nancy Braley. I live at 849 DeWitt Road. And I just want to say that if the board is considering, as you are, repealing 103, I think it should be tweaked, especially when it comes to helicopters. The helicopters make a lot of noise and they shake, rattle, and roll your house. And if this law gets repealed, I'm just afraid they're going to try to put a helipad at the south end of DeWitt Road, which was a few years back an hot item. And I happen to live in that area, and I'll tell you, when that helicopter flies over your house, it shakes, rattles, and rolls all the china in the cabinet. So you can come to my house if you want and test it out, but I don't think that helicopters belong in Webster. And if if you decide to allow it, it should be restricted to areas where there are not personal residences. So out, not in residential neighborhoods. Okay, that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Nancy. And next up is that Harold Laley?
Yeah.
Did I have that?
He's coming.
Okay, it is Harold, okay.
Yes.
What's that?
He's coming at flag speed.
I already like him. Executive decision, he gets 4 days. Sue me.
My name is Harold Bradley, 849 DeWitt Road. The town of Webster, just a little background on why this law is here. I know a lot of you don't know about it. The town of Webster invented this law. There was one heliport that was built in the town at that time on the north end of DeWitt Road. Soon the neighbors got rid of it. It then started landing in an old gravel pit on the south end of DeWitt Road. When this went over your house, it would shake your entire house. Helicopters are different from small planes. They have turbulence that comes down. Think about it. If you want to lift 1,000 pounds and you want to lift with air, you got to put 1,001 pounds on to lift it. So you got a hurricane coming from those rotor blades, and there's no way out of it. And you have a good law. If you feel you should modify it, maybe it should be modified a little bit, but be very careful, because you had a hornet's nest here, I think it was 2005, 2006 or it was 2010, 2011. I don't know which year this law was made. But we had a hornet's nest in this town, and it was the town had experience with the helicopter, and that was the end of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Next up is Richard Freer.
My name is Richard Freer. I live at 546 Clem Road. And I'm in favor of having helipads in Webster simply because every emergency service that there is uses helicopters. The Mercy Flag, even the U.S. Army. Every hospital in Rochester has a helipad. It's something that could possibly be needed in an emergency situation. I would assume it would be built near firehouses. I'm not sure where the proposed rule is supposed to put these things, but as far as noise and affecting private residents, virtually every airport in New York State or in the country has noise abatement rules that every pilot has to obey. And as far as what direction you take off in, what direction you fly from the airport in, what direction you approach the airport, all of that can be set down in writing and rules by the FAA. So to accommodate neighbors and businesses, whoever might be affected by these aircraft. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan Schlegel is next.
Hi, I'm Joan Schlegel. I live at 270 Colorado Drive. I'd like to state for the record that I'm totally against repealing Chapter 103 of the Code of the Town of Webster, and it's mainly for safety reasons. In the notice of public hearing, it states the board has the responsibility to promote the health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. A helicopter landing at the corner of my street is against that responsibility, in my opinion. I researched the FAA website. The #1 cause of helicopter crashes is pilot error. This is due to the control complexity, which is actually greater than airplanes, and also because helicopters must fly lower to the ground. A helicopter must fly 1,000 feet over a city and 500 feet over smaller villages, which means 500 feet over the rooftops of the homes in Webster. This makes low visibility and weather conditions such as fog, wind, snow, hail too risky to fly. And I mentioned that we had all of these conditions several times last month. I live 5 houses where Mr. Kashani proposes to land his helicopter. We are right on Arundequoit Bay and influenced by the weather patterns from the lake and the bay every day. We're all aware of the significant noise level of a helicopter, particularly when it is landing. This is very unacceptable and unhealthy in a residential area. Will there be fuel and other petroleum products stored on the property? This is another major safety risk. It's also a known fact, and I did check on this, that it will reduce the value of homes in the close proximity to the helicopter landing. Repealing this law will add convenience for one person and significant safety risks for many of the residents of Webster. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. And that is quick because Robert is right there. All right.
Yeah, I
Robert Schlegel
put
is
this
next.
under 5 minutes, so I'm a little upset. I'm going to have to read very quickly. Robert Schlegel, 270 Colorado Drive. I'm totally against the repeal of the town law, section 103 of the town code regarding the use of health reports, as well as taking off and landing of helicopters and smaller craft anywhere in the town of Webster. My objections are many. In a recent article regarding Webster Hill, Robert Grenier provided some misinformation. How purposive was this and who were his sources? He claims that flight enthusiasts feel that this law in Webster is unfair and singles them out. Who are these people and what favors are they looking for? Were these board members who are considering these changes for one person at the meeting in 2006 when an overwhelming crowd joined the meeting and objected to Mr. Kiani's original proposal to allow this heliport? Many of those attending objected to it based on safety more than noise production, which opposes what the article had said, where safety was mentioned secondarily. The article continues to state that the town focuses how uncommon it is for the town to ban helicopters, with Webster being the only one to do so. He goes on to say that several towns do have chapters on helicopters who seem far more to grant special use permits for helipad sites. This is quite strange because I called each of the 21 towns in Monroe County, speaking directly to their mayors and supervisors or those in charge of the town codes, and not one said that helicopters were allowed or small aircraft in residential neighborhoods. The only exceptions were medevac pads for emergency flights at some of the three major hospitals, as well as a few towns in the outskirts of the county that had a couple of small planes on some large farms to dust crops when the winter was over, which is not near residential areas. Where did this misinformation come from? The claims in the article that some of them question why Webster is prohibiting recreational activity in other towns allow. None of the people who I spoke to had made comments on this at all. Is anyone aware that for well over a decade, airports have been designed to be located far away from cities for safety reasons alone? Is this in line with where Mr. Kashani's heliport will be? In the residential area here, there are many trees, winds, and change directions often. The weather is quite unpredictable at times. The article claims that this heliport is some distance from most residences, which couldn't be farther from the truth unless one completely discounts our neighborhood on the southern end of DeWitt Road, west of Bay Road. How responsible is each of the board members who vote in favor of this law if an accident could become a reality? Will zone changes be required in this case, which will certainly affect the values of homes in the immediate proximity of the heliport? There are other parts of the region nearby which one could possibly ask for similar zone changes also, if they were developed. If gasoline is or will be stored on this site, would a request by any of us residents also be granted to store gasoline on our properties be approved, as he is allowed to do? We need to be careful for what we ask for as well as what is granted to us, because then we find some residents who appear to be much more important than others at the expense of those others. I totally object to this insanity going forward. The other thing is, if we had known this was going to come up again, we would have contributed to everybody's runs for office with the caveat that this would not be approved. Thank you.
And I have a copy for each of the members.
Thank you, Reverend.
Go ahead.
So I gotta give him credit, he finished in 4 minutes and 1 second. Now, the reason why I let him go over 3 is his lovely bride only took 1.5 minutes, so I figured the family discount between the two of them, they were at 5.5 minutes, which is less than 6.
Thank you.
Oh, I hope I pronounced this correctly. John Stralsgiver? Did I say that correctly? Can't wait to hear it, because I phonetically am.
Hi, my name is John Salzgiver. My wife and I live at 897 Clem Road. Full disclosure, I'm a friend of John's. I'm a certified pilot. Thanks. I'd like to thank the board for even considering this. I imagine it's got some political problems associated with it. I'm a retired airline pilot. I have about 13,000 hours. I'm a flight instructor, and I'm rated to fly seaplanes as well. So I want to talk about the training and qualifications that are required to fly a certified aircraft in the airspace of the United States. I think everybody can kind of understand it's not like just getting into a car or truck and turning the key and going. Every aircraft is different. It requires highly specialized training, and it takes years, literally years, to get the qualifications to operate one of these machines. Not only are the pilots required to undergo recurrent qualification, They are required to go through medical exams. For a person of my advanced years, it's every 6 months. They have to prove that they're physically fit and that they know how to operate their equipment. This also applies to the aircraft. These aircraft, certified aircraft, let's keep, what we're talking about is certified aircraft, have to undergo annual inspections that are far more involved than what they do down at the local corner garage. They don't just beep the horn and flash the lights. These inspections take sometimes weeks and cost thousands of dollars. These machines are taken apart, looked at very carefully, and put back together, and then the owner gets a bill. Even if Cessna is going to cost $3,000 a year just for the inspection. So here's the thing. As I understand the current town code, helicopters and other aircraft are prohibited. Yet ultralights are apparently okay. Guess what doesn't apply to ultralights? There's no pilot qualifications, there's no recurrent, there's no inspections, no nothing. You could buy an ultralight airplane, which I call them lawn chairs with wings. It might be a powered parachute, it might be a trike, but these things are flimsy machines. You have no qualifications. I'm not talking to you guys, but you don't need any qualifications to operate these things. Now the 500 feet and 1,000 feet, that's accurate. That's not just helicopters. When I was coming into land in my United airliner, I could fly down to 500 feet. Now the tower wouldn't let me do that, but I could. That's the rule for all aircraft. 1,000 feet over densely populated areas, 500 feet over sparsely populated
John,
areas.
we're at 2:45.
Okay. So, I would say this to the town board. If you're really serious about quality of life issues like noise, I'll invite any one of you to bring a lawn chair, sit on my front porch on Clem Road, and we'll talk about noise. I think you all know what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Mark Beatty.
Good evening, Mark Beatty, 7 Durham Way. I'm here to support removing 103 from the books. I know the two biggest concerns here are safety and the noise. So if I was a neighbor, I'd understand that. My qualifications have been flying helicopters for 32 years for the military. I fly the ones overhead for the National Guard that rattle the China, and I've been flying quite a long time. So my concerns, first, safety. You already heard from John that the qualifications of the individual are governed by the FAA. They're pretty strict. The safety of his aircraft. It's a helicopter with a turbine engine, with a safety record that far exceeds any of the reciprocating engines. The helipad, where it's located, is large. It's rather isolated, where the arrivals and departures can be made in a way that noise footprint isn't as great. And it also the size of the aircraft at 2,600 pounds max gross weight, noise footprint is far less than the Chinooks, both Blackhawks that fly over at night. So those are the two biggest concerns, but I feel this is a good start to repeal, and if noise abatement is an issue, that's something that can be dealt with directly with the FAA, one of those organizations that govern the airspace above which we live. That's all I have.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
I hope I get this one right. Next up, is it Nash Daisha?
Close.
Okay.
Nash Da Silva, 1036 Palm Road. I'm for repealing 103. As a pilot, 27 years, private pilot, flown a bunch of different aircraft, and as a entrepreneur businessman, I'm involved with
Next up is Phyllis Conley.
I'll make my comments more brief than everything that I've written down, but to sum it up, I'm the opinion that a helicopter with a special use permit should be allowed to take and land within the town. However, helicopters used for recreational purposes should not be allowed, since Webster is almost entirely comprised of residential and business district, schools, and churches. My concerns regard taking off and landing safely and the amount of fuel that is being delivered and stored on the helicopter owner's property. So nothing has changed regarding the rationale behind the necessity for Section 103. I am very much in favor of keeping Section 103 of the town code in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Al Sinkowitz is next.
Town board, members of the public, this is my 5th time being here since 2005, and obviously I'm still opposed to repealing Section 103. 266 Colorado Drive, I'm about 400 feet from the landing area. I'm a lifelong resident of the town of Webster. For the benefit of the newer board members and for some of the newer public that are here, a brief history of how this has come down. In 2003, Mr. Kashani starts to fly out of Sundance Trail, even though New York State law 249 of the general business law prohibits it. 249 requires you to get the approval of the governing body in that area. In February of 06, he migrates to 893 DeWitt Road, builds a heliport first, and comes to the town second seeking approval. In April 2006, the town of Webster passes 103. In 2009, Mr. Kashani sues the town over that. The purpose of 103, to provide for the protection, health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the town of Webster. Facts I present to you tonight come from 3 sources: the Federal Aviation Administration, National Transportation Safety Board, and the State of Washington Airports and Compatible Use Manual. We've gone over safety, 3 main reasons why this was put in place: safety, noise, population density. The U.S. Supreme Court has held that noise, safety, and aesthetics and valuation of adjoining land are rational and permissible reasons for land use restrictions. The objectives of compatible land use planning are to encourage land uses that are generally considered to be incompatible with airports to locate away from airports, and encourage land uses that are more compatible to locate around airports. Safety is synonymous with compatibility. You got to look at the operational requirements of the aircraft, the phase of aircraft operation, and the land use in the adjacent area. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of statistics, but out of the I take it back, Federal Aviation Administration airports and land use, by far the highest accident rates in 11 years tabulated in this report occur in rotorcraft. Pilot error, terrain, weather, and engine system failure are the 4 leading reasons of helicopter crashes. 64% of all general aviation accidents occur within 5,000 feet at the end of a runway during approach, descent, takeoff, or climb. It can be concluded from this data that much of the risk associated with air transportation is associated with takeoff and landing phase of flight. For purposes of maintaining safety and for the implementation of good land use, the most critical areas to protect from incompatible land use are those areas directly below the approach and departure paths to the airport. Item number 2, noise. How would the board protect us from noise? Noise, FAA tables list the residential areas as the most sensitive to noise, and we're right there.
On the ground is dependent upon the loudness of the aircraft engine, the altitude of the aircraft, and horizontal distance between the observers and the track. Helicopters are most notable for delayed slap, slope speed descents, high-speed cruise, and on approach. There are reasons why helicopters land and take off out of airports. Population density, if anything, this older area Webster around the road is as dense as any area in the town. Prevailing westerly winds require an approach from the east, and remember, adjacent areas are the most susceptible to aircraft accidents. Item number 4, property values in the adjoining area. What assurances do we have that our property values will not increase?
You're at 4 minutes now. I've given some leeway because you're reading off, but
Okay,
I
let me
will say
conclude.
this. Will you be able to give us those written notes for the public record?
Sure.
So the board will be able to discern those?
More than happy to.
That'd be great. Thank you. And I guess, Mr. Slaley, you said that we could get a copy of yours.
Yeah, so he went.
Anybody that is taking the podium that has a written statement, it would be really beneficial to the board as we do our next week of education and discerning, whatever, to see those. So, thank you. Next up is Kyle Malone.
Hi, how are you? First off, Kyle Malone, 889 DeWitt Road. First off, the board, thank you. We've been doing this for a little bit now, been to multiple meetings. I can say that there's two different things going on. I'm for repealing the act. I hear two things. I hear people saying that they don't want it anywhere in Webster, and then I hear things come up about John. So, first off, I'm going to say, for the town of Webster, I'm going to assume that they're going to take every precaution for the town of Webster. In regards to John, in all reality, I'm one of the closest neighbors to John. I'm 2 down from him. I think Bill's the only other closest one than me. And so essentially we have the same backyard. In terms of safety, I've never felt unsafe in that area. I don't have any issue with it. In terms of noise, I think the actual normal aircraft that fly over at night are louder than what I hear when he ever has the helicopter anywhere in the area. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet and say I have 0 problem with either one. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is John Moosen. Close?
Hello, I'm here to support the repeal of this statute of law, if you will. I appreciate everybody's point of view, and I think that's why our government works, is people have to be open to other people's point of view, but I learned in my 33 years here on Earth that if you speak from a position of disinformation or fear, you're not gonna arrive at the correct conclusion. And I would implore a lot of people to open their mind about what this law actually does. This law only prevents an aircraft from landing on the ground. It does nothing a foot off the ground, 10 feet off the ground, 50 feet off the ground. It does nothing to protect anybody. The hot buttons here are noise and safety. But I think to really look at this objectively, you can just kind of like reduce it to absurdity, because everyone you got in your car here to drive here, and you have a way higher chance of injuring yourself in your car than you would in an aircraft or an aircraft flying overhead. And that being said, the FAA governs everything above your head, and helicopters and airplanes are flying over your head constantly. So, you know, the town of Webster has no jurisdiction to keep you any safer. And you know, you can list off stats and you know, try to fit those into your point of view. But ultimately, if you look at it objectively, the law does nothing to stop noise, to make anybody any safer. And like I said, it's not really a safety issue. If you want to talk about noise, highway noise is louder. If you look at, you know, cars as a concentric circle,
and then motorcycles as the next one, and then aircraft, because that's what we're talking about, even though everybody's focusing on a helicopter. As you reduce each of these circles down, you know, the populations get smaller, and everybody seems to be focusing on helicopter. So motivations are, you know, questionable. We're talking about aircraft here. Nobody's talking about the seaplanes that land around Decoy Bay every day in the summer. Nobody's concerned about the safety of those. Everyone's talking about a helicopter. That's the small circle. So that's what I'll say. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Good, John.
Did we get John's address?
I think I have 200 Mill Stream Run.
Thank you.
200 Mill Stream Run. John Musa. Next up is Dave Kennedy.
Here's my testimony from town court. This copy is for the attendees if you like.
Great.
Good evening, Webster Town Council. For the topic of tonight's hearing, a proposal to effectively enable the conditional takeoff and landing of aircraft in the town. The best interests of most residents is to sustain the peaceful status quo. Few, if any, townspeople will take pleasure with the noise, visual distraction, safety risk, or any other aspect of having low-altitude aircraft movement, takeoffs, and landings over the public and private areas of the town. It would seem the only people to benefit from this proposal are the very few so privileged as to own a private aircraft. As our elected officials, you are empowered to make decisions that affect the quality of life in our town. Collectively, your constituents expect you to exercise good, sound, prudent judgment as you examine and assess each issue that becomes before you. We expect each of you to make your decisions independently, with the best interests of as many residents as possible, and of course, without consideration of your personal interests. This proposal is not in the best interest of the people who elected you to office. It is not in the best interest of the people of Webster. There is no public interest reason for you to approve it, and I hope you will not repeal it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Next up is Kimberly Serio.
Kimberly Serio, 594 Pine Glen Drive. I have personal experience with the helicopter. When we moved into our home, we were unable to appreciate our backyard for an entire summer. And I've actually got the statistics on what the decibel level is, and my husband being a music guy actually pulled it out, but we couldn't have a conversation across the picnic table when the helicopter was up and running. So I am vehemently opposed to canceling this law. And I don't know the people who want this. I have nothing against them. But we have lots of toys, and they're very loud. But we also have property out in the middle of nowhere where we appreciate it. So as far as emergency helicopters, they don't have to land on a private pad. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Next up is Jared Hurt.
Good evening, members of the board. I think what's being missed in everyone's opinions and with this law is that...
Jared, can you give your address?
Sure. Jared Hurt, 100 Meridian Center. There are 19 towns in Monroe County, and Webster is the only town that has a prohibition against helicopters. And the reason for that is because it's not necessary. It's government overreaching. Why do I say that? I say that because I haven't heard anybody take the podium tonight and talk about the process of actually getting approved a heliport or an airport in any town or municipality in the state of New York. What no one has mentioned is that in order for that to happen, you need to first come to the municipality pursuant to New York state law. New York State law requires anybody looking to establish a private heliport or airport to come to the town, to get a resolution, to then take that resolution and to go to the New York State Department of Transportation, their aviation bureau, the experts that are in charge of regulating private heliports and airports. And what does the New York State Department of Transportation Aviation Bureau look for? They look for you to have approval from the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA approval. So I could not sit up here in 5 minutes or 3 minutes and go over each and every regulation that somebody must comply with in order to get approval, in order to put a heliport on their property. Suffice to say, I probably couldn't do it in 5 days. What I do have for each and every one of you are the laws that govern this and why it's not necessary, why it's strict government overreach to have a law on the books in the town that attempts to somehow add some regulation that's already covered by New York State town law, that's already covered by federal law, and when it's already required for the town here to pass a resolution to allow an applicant to go before New York State. So that's not being discussed, but that's the reason why no other town in the entire county has a law like the town of Webster. It's not needed. So I'm going to pass these out to the members of the board so that you can, in your leisure, review them. There's a lot of legalese in them, but please look at them over the next week. And I believe that will make it very clear why we don't need this law.
Thank you, Jared.
I got some more for everybody.
You're done at the podium, I think.
I figured I was getting cut off.
You know.
Sometimes more is better. Or less is better, I should say.
Did you have another one of these?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's right here.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thanks, Jared. Well, I would usually say that that's a tough act to follow, but next up is the Honorable Ronald W. Nesbitt, the previous town supervisor here in Webster.
My name is Ronald Nesbitt, former supervisor of the town of Webster for 14 years, 1075 Railway Crossing. In last week's Webster Herald, Supervisor Flaherty announced that an informed and engaged community is a better community. And this town board even hired a communications director to inform Webster residents. Yet when it comes to changing the 18-year-old helicopter law, we heard crickets from town staff about why this item is even on tonight's agenda. Let's take a look back at how we got here. In 2006, the helicopter law came about after residents brought concerns to the town board regarding their personal safety because a private helicopter was landing in a residential neighborhood. The town board at that time took the personal safety of residents seriously, did their due diligence, and passed a helicopter law. John Cassani then sued the town of Webster over this law. He lost the case, and the courts upheld the law as proper. The lawsuit cost the town a lot of taxpayer money to fight. John didn't stop there, though. He then went on to sue me personally in federal court by stating that I violated his civil rights because I discriminated against him as an Italian American. He also got his father, Tony Cassani, the planning board chairman, to sign an affidavit against me that I discriminated against Italian Americans, which is just a bunch of BS. The court also found that lawsuit to be without merit and dismissed the case. Tony Cassani didn't stop there, though. For the next 13 years, and every other month, he would ask me to change the law so John could fly the helicopter in town. And I was always said no. Then came 2017, when he came to my office and said if I could change the law, his son John would pay for my election campaign in a way of signs, mailings, postage, or anything else I needed. I saw that as a bribe, and I immediately called the town attorney, the deputy supervisor Cataldi, and former town councilman Bill Abbott to inform them about the incident. And there were witnesses in the office that day also. You would think that that would be the end of the drama, But no, John didn't stop there. He decided he was above the law and landed the helicopter at his house and got caught on camera by a neighbor. The town issued him a ticket for breaking the law. The town attorney prosecuted John in court, and he lost again. John's next step was to donate $1,500 to then candidate Tom Flaherty to his personal campaign fund in 2019 election cycle. When Supervisor Flaherty switched to Republican in 2020, John Cassani switched his money machine to the Webster Republican Party. Since 2020, John has spent another $1,350 in donations to the Webster Republican Party to support the 5 Republicans sitting at the town board table tonight. What's the old saying? Follow the money. My point here is very simple. Over the past 18 years, many tax dollars have been wasted fighting lawsuits and court cases, and not once did the town board give in to harassment and change the law just to benefit one individual. Yet now that the money has been donated to the Webster Republicans, we now have a rush to change laws to please a donor. That, my friends, is called payover. And if you don't believe me, ask Jennifer Wright. She was the secretary at Webster Republican Party, and she put the checks in the bank. Do you feel there are safety or liability issues with landing a private helicopter? Absolutely. Let me go here a minute. I might also remind the board that you took a hard stand against the special police because of liability issues.
Ron, you're now at 4 minutes and 10 seconds. And we're on the special police now. Finish it up, please.
Yes. I might also remind the board you took a hard stand against keeping the special police because of liability issues and special and safety concern. How in the world are you not applying the same logic to this? It seems very hypocritical.
Thank you, Ron. Now that's a tough act to follow, but Ken Corpus, I bet you're up for it. You're next.
That is a tough act to follow, but I'm not going down that road. I hereby claim all unused minutes from the speakers that went before me. I guess this is what we call the right of infinite refusal. We've been here before many times. Some of us, the same people who fought the first time, are back again fighting. I can't imagine how they feel tonight. I have flown a drone for almost 10 years, so I guess I can regard myself as a helicopter pilot. One speaker said the current law doesn't make anyone safer. Wrong. I think it does. I Googled helicopter crashes. There was one 2 days ago where 5 people died. There was one 3 days ago where 6 people died. There was one where 4 people died. I mean, just Google it yourself. You'll get the point. It happens. It's not safe in a residential area. The lawyer that stood up here, who's not a town resident, said that the law is not needed, but yet the helicopter pad, because of New York State's requirements, the helicopter pad was built without the town's approval. So I guess if you're willing to follow the law, maybe they apply, but if you don't follow the law, they mean nothing. We have a noise ordinance in this town. The helicopter will easily violate that. I had a neighbor call the police on me for a mini bike in the backyard once. I got to imagine a helicopter is noisier than that. Just my guess. I've never been near one landing, but I'll take people's word for it. Also, once you authorize this particular law or reverse it, whatever, what's to stop other people in the future that want to do something similar? We've had several people here talk tonight that are certified pilots. What's to stop them from wanting a helipad? Or maybe an airport, or whatever. Essentially, I think this sets us up for some interesting problems down the road. What happens if somebody wants a helicopter pad and is going to sell helicopter rides? Or maybe a helicopter tour along the lake? Or maybe a quick helicopter ride to an airport? Now it becomes a commercial enterprise. So I find it rather hard to believe that the people in Webster, especially the ones that live along the water, that pay some of the highest taxes in town, are going to want a helicopter landing there. And please don't tell me about him following regulations. We've already heard that he doesn't do that. Landing a helicopter in a residential neighborhood was a bad idea when the law was created. It's still a bad idea. Landing a helicopter. He lands his helicopter now at the Williamson Airport. I suggest you do the right thing and let him continue to land it there and not in Webster.
Thanks, Ken. Next up is Brian Goodman.
Hi, Brian Gutman, 228 Millstream Run. I've been a lifelong resident here in Webster, with the exception of my time at college at Daniel Webster Aeronautical College, and serving in the United States Coast Guard down in New York City. I've worked with every local, state, county, federal government agency in their aviation aircraft down in New York City. I've stood under the prop wash of airplanes and helicopters, lifting accident victims up into a helicopter. I know the sound, I know the force that has been talked about, I understand that. When I heard about this being repealed, I said, wow, what aviation accident have I missed that we're talking about? Because I can't think of an airplane or helicopter crashing in Webster in my 50 years here in Webster. Before this law was enacted or after this law was enacted. So I went out to the NTSB, I looked at their website, I searched their online database of accidents they've investigated. There are none in Webster, before or after. I went out to the FAA's website. I looked at their research data for accidents and incidents that they have had. Again, before and after. I'm not finding anything. Do more Googling searching. Found an incident, 2019, here in Webster. A helicopter did make an emergency landing in the Webster Schrader parking lot. It was a precautionary. They were not transporting any patient. Nobody got hurt. The aircraft didn't get hurt. And the parking lot of Webster Schrader did not get hurt. So again, really, not an accident. When you look at Google Earth and you see what other airports have been here in Webster, 30 years ago in 1994, there was a grass strip. It's actually in the neighborhood that I live in now. That airport, that grass strip, Hagedorn family would fly their helicopter, or their airplane. Yep. That aircraft and that runway took off over Hedges Restaurant. It flew east to west. There's no way it didn't fly over Hedges. All right? I understand that there is definitely noise complaints. All right? But this law has some serious fundamental issues. The definitions in here have some problems that have not stood the test of time. It talks about any rotorcraft. Well, let's look at the definition of rotorcraft. A heavier than aircraft that depends principally on its support of flight and its lift generated by one or more rotors. This definition also describes unmanned aircraft systems, UAS, which the FAA declares is the future of aviation, seen on their website, faa.gov/UAS. A drone doing visual inspections of roofs, chimneys, cell phone towers, water towers is much safer than having a person get on a ladder, climb up the ladder, and visually look at it. Flying a drone is much safer. So, the person who said they were flying drones here in Webster, by the definitions of this law, I'm sorry, you should be given a ticket. Because this law doesn't allow hobbyists or anybody to fly a rotorcraft drone of any size. So, I really would think that this law should either be repealed or at least be highly modified to be updated with definitions that the FAA is using. Thank you.
Thank you. William McDonald is next.
Good evening, William McDonald, 891 DeWitt Road. I live next to John, and I've heard lots of pros and cons. I've lived there for about 3.5 years now. I've heard the helicopter come in behind my house. This is right next to him, not across the street, or anything else. My dishes don't rattle, my siding doesn't come off. He's hovered a little bit, coming from a distance, from behind our property. I have 2 kids, I've never felt unsafe. It's just not an issue that I personally am that concerned about, that I think we need the level of overreach we have. Would I fly in a helicopter? Probably not, but that's my right to say no, and it's his right to say yes. That's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's pretty good. We just took 53 minutes to go through the 20 speakers, and now, Valerie, I think I have the written ones that came in. Hopefully I can read each of these in much less than 3 minutes. This is from Mike Bauman at 92 Castle Acres Drive. As a resident of West Webster, I share the same concerns as my neighbors about noise, safety, quality of life, and declining property values that a nearby helipad would have on our neighborhood. But I also have these concerns for the entire town of Webster. If Code 103 is eliminated, that opens the door for other potential helipads or light aircraft. I realize that owning and operating a helicopter is an expensive hobby. It isn't for everybody, but it only takes one helicopter to disrupt an entire neighborhood. In a year or two, if someone wants a helipad in your neighborhood, are you okay with that? What if one household wants 2 helicopters? Or what about having 2 helipads a mile apart? These what-if situations may seem far-fetched, but you can't rule them out as a possibility. The January 24, 2024 edition of Webster Herald indicates that the proposal for changing the town code focuses on how uncommon it is for a town to ban helicopters, with Webster being the only town in Montgomery County to do so. The argument reminds me of the old saying, if little Jimmy stuck a stick in his eye, would you? I'm just reading it off, folks. From my perspective, I say Webster got it right. While doing some research, I found out a proposed helipad in Webster was previously denied years ago. The reason for the denying the helipad was because there isn't a single benefit to the 45,000 people of Webster. This would be a law of convenience for very few, not necessarily for the residents of Webster. I believe this statement still holds true today. As board members, you have the ability to negatively impact 45,000 citizens of Webster by catering to a few. Please don't fix what ain't broken. Please deny the proposal to eliminate Chapter 103 from the Webster Town Code. Please keep Webster a place where life is worth living. That's number 1. Number 2, I don't think I have her address. It's Debbie Lester, but I can get her address. This is what she wants in the record. I was appalled to hear that the board was even considering of changing the town code in Webster. I do know that individual that is asking to have this change in his location. That means he'll be flying over my house. You can hear a helicopter way before you see it, and it's a disruption and noise nuisance. But if we allow this individual to have a heliport, what would stop the Army on Ridge Road to follow suit? Plus, then allow other citizens of Webster to fly other machines, the 6-foot remote-controlled airplanes or drones anywhere. I do know that if it was even closer to my house, I would be very upset to hear it and see the damage the wind could cause my property. Other citizens of Webster have a fun toy, go to the appropriate places to use it. Example, boats go to marina, the remote-controlled planes go to the airstrip. Helicopters should go to the airport. Then you get into your car and drive home. I do hope the town board tells the individual to cease this action and drive to the nearest airport, which is on Route 104 in Williamson. Many thanks. That's Debbie Lester. Oh, that's right. Yes. Okay. Dorothy Fate at 742 Hightower Way says, I will be out of town at the time of the public hearing, and I would like to express my support for continuing the local regulations as written. I do not believe that this town needs to revisit this ordinance that prohibits the establishment of an airport or heliport. The continued challenge to this regulation could cost the town in legal fees. I prefer that it is clear, not subject to undue financial or political pressure to allow the regulation to be challenged. There is no town benefit to allowing aircraft to land within the town. Next one is Dave Woolrob at 714 Cogswell Circle. Perhaps the reason no other town, village in Monroe County has a ban on helicopters landing is that no one has asked to routinely land and take off a helicopter. I would bet that should one ask, the town village would come up with an ordinance pretty damn quick. Can we put that in there? Yes, we can. The man's in the room here tonight. He could have said that at the podium. Especially if the location was in an area of residential zoning. I sure as hell would not want to listen to the roar of the, I better really look ahead here before we get into the George Carlin 7, right?
We can put like dash.
Okay, I sure as heck would not want to listen to the roar of a helicopter as it landed or took off. And speaking of sound, I believe Webster does have a noise ordinance. How does Mr. Kashani plan to deal with that issue? We do not pass rescind zoning ordinance to benefit a single individual. Ordinances are for the safety and betterment of an entire town. There's a very nice facility on Brooks Avenue, about a 20-minute drive down the expressway. It's specifically designed to handle this type of aircraft and others as well. I believe there is even a squadron of National Guard or Army Reserve helicopters on the property. These are my comments for the public hearing. The next one we didn't print out because it came out late. This is from Jean McGraw. I don't think she spoke tonight.
No, she did not.
She's at 299 Colorado Drive. And Jean says, I strongly oppose changing the current status of not allowing helicopters to land on personal property. I have concerns about the Bay Bridge and DeWitt Road overpass. If either of them were damaged, the current roads would be overwhelmed. In my opinion, the wishes of one man versus the needs of the town is a no-brainer. Thank you for considering my view. And then, someone who is at the hospital with their daughter, who didn't have email, asked me to read this text. Shannon Mercone at 882 DeWitt Road. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, I could not attend tonight to support Mr. Kashani and have the opportunity to speak in front of the town board once again. I speak on behalf of myself and 17 of Mr. Kashani's closest surrounding neighbors. We have had a petition that has been signed by the closest households of Mr. Kashani's residents in support of the law of helicopters in town of Webster to be overturned. The last town meeting, we felt a lot of us were not heard. Many of us had much supported documentation as to why we felt this law should be looked into further to be overturned. For anyone to oppose this law being overturned, I just have a few questions as to why others than for your own personal reasons. We as Webster residents do not own airspace, nor do we have the authority or adequate proven documentation as to why this law came into effect in the first place. Mr. Kashani is a licensed pilot cleared through the FAA to safely navigate his personal aircraft in any airspace controlled by the FAA, not Webster town residents. There is absolutely no proof that shows otherwise. We are in support to have this law overturned. Thank you for your time. I think, Dolly, those are the written emails, texts that have been received. Is that 5 of them?
6.
Is it 6? We had 5, 10, 1 pro. I said earlier, if you have written statements, it would really be great for the town board to have them. We are going to do our homework on this, leave no stone unturned. This woman here, Shannon, said there's some petition signed by 17 residents. Is that available?
I think she was referencing one that was brought to us at the last meeting.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I would say that at this point, after 18 households and 20 speakers tonight, along with 6 written comments that we read off, that concludes the public hearing, so I am going to close it out. And as I said earlier, I think there's some homework that needs to be done. That's my opinion. I don't know if the other 4 board members feel like they need to get some reading of documentation and things of that nature. So,
I'm sorry.
do you have any discussion items that you'd like to bring up on this, Jen, or Patty, or Jenny, or John at this point?
I just want to thank everybody for coming out and giving us your thoughts on this issue. And as you said, we will do our homework.
Okay. All right.
You gonna take a 5-minute break or no?
I think, well, if people would like to stay to see some of the excitement of the rest of the board meeting, by all means do. You know, we usually don't get this kind of crowd. This would be
Subs and pizza are getting
nice. You know?
I agree, right?
I can't eat that.
Well, as long as the asking for help us allow the outside.
Yep.
Brian, you have any thoughts to say? You did a great job, not being a public speaker. Okay. And this, now we
I've got some pictures.
You can take it. I would.
Until he opened up the bottle.
Oh, I thought I was coming here to make sure you were doing If you're all right.
I can't.
I'll submit something right now. There's still a lot of
So anyway, that's great. By the way, that was very impressive time. No, your problems are.
I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that. So you didn't get to go to the Grammys? I think it's going to go on Then when they turn,
No, well. Yeah, definitely during COVID, I know down in Lakewood. I was trying to
I used to live at 498 now. Wait, I'm next to the judge. Oh, yeah. I don't know. Used to buy candy bars when I was like selling for soccer instead of bread. My dad was very smart. On the private side, I don't have my. I didn't think you were. I just, like,
what is the term quiet enjoyment? And maybe I'm just getting older, but I don't have a lot of patience for someone that can lie
Okay.
They have a little ambient.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes, I am. I think our 5 minute. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Well, I think our 5-minute break is up because actually it was about an 8-minute break or 10-minute. But okay, so the next item up is an open to the floor. Each speaker is allowed up to 5 minutes, and we have 2 people that signed in tonight. Back for round 2 is the Honorable Ronald Nesbitt.
Now, what do I didn't hear, 3 or 5 minutes?
5 minutes, my friend.
I did 5 here.
There's only 2 of you.
You could have taken 2, give me any other one. But, let me see here. On tonight's agenda, number 8, states resolution to award a professional consulting services contract for the town of Webster and Fairway. Number 9 states resolution to authorize the supervisor to sign Village of Webster IMA for sidewalks. Number 10 is a resolution applying Monroe County Livingston Regional for EMS. So my question is, why these resolutions weren't placed on the town's website 24 hours in advance of tonight's meeting as required by law passed by the governor in 2020. If Supervisor Fleury wants communications with Webster residents, you need to put the information out so we can see it and understand it if you want transparency in Webster government. It's not happening right now. Now I will have to file a FOIL again to gain a consulting contract in the IMA with the village if I want to see what the particulars are. That's just not right. Also, one has to wonder if the materials aren't online. Does that indicate the town board members aren't seeing the documents for the agenda till they sit down at the meeting? And if so, how can members vote when you don't have proper time to review documents? Because I hear it happens often. Now, number 13 tonight talks about another $7 million for sewer for Fairway. And I would like to understand if this is in addition to the $81 million this town board has already committed to sewer, and who is paying for this upgrade? And again, where are the documents and contracts with Fairway that lay out the details of this agreement? When can Webster residents expect this information? I completely agree with appointing Marisol as acting assessor, but that brings up a good question. When is the town board going to authorize a town-wide revaluation of town properties, which is sadly needed? The town currently has an equalization rate of 58%, and after March 1st, could be as low as 54%, while other towns in Monroe County are at 90 to 100%. It's long overdue to get this task done, regardless of the cost. Finally, I'd like to thank the Citizens Action League for filming these meetings, because the iPhone method employed by this town board is deplorable. Many citizens I have spoken with have said to me that they can't hear the meetings and the speakers at the podium. This is a sad turn of events for Webster after the town receives $550,000 a year in franchise fees to provide better video, audio services to their residents. So again, thank you, Webster Citizens Action League, so I can watch the meetings the next day with a clear picture and sound. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Where is the Citizens Action League tonight? Is Les? Is that?
I don't know.
I don't know if we're gonna be able to watch it tomorrow, Ron. I don't see that. No, he's not here. Okay. Next up, Deja Vu. You're following Ron. Ken Corpus.
Ken Corpus, 1464 Grand Meadows Way. So, to follow up what I was saying with the helicopter, and I heard that, you know, they were talking about experienced pilots and all that, but every single one of the crashes that's on here is an experienced pilot. Army, Ski Patrol, you know, every single one of these people that's crashed is an experienced pilot with many, many hours, and they do it professionally. It's not a hobby for most of them, so I would think that, you know, if they could have a crash, so can a small helicopter in a residential neighborhood. I wanted to bring up the same fact about the camera and the recording here. It's very hard to watch these from home and hear what's being said. I see behind me that there's two huge Sony cameras and another one over there, and I question why they're not being used. I know you're not going to answer my question, but I think an explanation to the citizens taxpayers might be in order, and maybe on the town Facebook page or something. So other than that, thank you again. I appreciate all your hard work, and think about what I said.
Thanks, Ken. Okay, next up are the last two board meeting minutes for approval. On the January 18th regular board meeting, I reviewed those minutes. I make a motion that we approve them.
Second?
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
And I also reviewed last week's workshop minutes from January 25th. I make a motion that we approve those.
A second?
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilman Cahill?
Abstain.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Jen, was it your first time doing the bills?
It was.
Yeah. Tell me what you think.
Yes, it was. It was quite a process, a lot of information. Everything was in order. Everything ticked in time. I asked a few questions, and it worked out okay.
Love it.
So with that, I would like to make a motion to approve the bills as submitted by the Director of Finance.
Second?
Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. And we missed Paul here today. He doesn't miss too many meetings, but he has a valid reason to miss. But the next four, I guess I'll just run through. I did review the prepaid warrants as submitted by Paul Adams, our Director of Finance, and make a motion that we approve those.
A second?
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
And I reviewed the purchase orders as submitted by Paul Adams, the Director of Finance. Make a motion we approve those.
Second. Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Usually we would have Paul Adams go through the list of budget transfers for 2023 and the budget amendments. I know that the board did get those out, I think on Tuesday to review. And does anybody have any questions?
No, I want to say that I'm very grateful to Paul because not only did he get them out to us, he gave us a wonderful explanation of all of them and gave us as much information as he possibly could.
Okay, then I make a motion to approve the 2023 budget transfers as presented by Paul Adams, the Director of Finance.
Second?
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
And I make a motion to approve the 2023 budget amendments as presented by Paul Adams, the Director of Finance.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
The next resolution, I would like to make a motion to appoint Thomas Traum to the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, Athletic Review Committee, ProStar, for a term of 3 years ending December 31st, 2026.
Second. Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Jason Majak to the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, Athletic Review Committee, ProStar, for a term of 3 years ending December 31st, 2026.
Second?
Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. A little break, 10 seconds here. Proving that new blood is good to any organization. Jennifer Wright, we're starting her second month of being on the board. I love the idea that if you're the liaison to the department, then you make the motion for it. What do you think about that, gang? Look at John, he gives me a thumbs up, that means he's blowing me up. I like that. I really do like that.
I'm glad you like it. I like it too. It allows everybody to
Do
participate.
we have to make a motion on that motion here? Anyway, so there's your 10-second break. Now the next three, because these are, I guess, hot topics. But, Josh, I think you can give an explanation of the next one, correct?
Yes, sure. So we basically released a request for proposals a few weeks ago for some assistance with code review associated with the construction of the Fairlife plant. We did receive two pretty strong proposals. We formed an internal selection committee that consisted of Paul Chatfield, our interim town engineer, as well as our building staff and the fire marshal and deputy fire marshal. We met to discuss both of the proposals and ultimately selected T.Y. Lin, which is a local company here. It's basically a time and material type contract, so we'll be tapping into them as needed to assist with some of the life and safety components of the actual construction of the Fairlife facility. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
I don't have any questions. I'm just reading their experience with similar building plans and similar projects if you can, because this one's pretty unique. But it looks like I can certainly understand why you're recommending them, or the group is recommending them, actually.
And I think it was it the 4th of January that we did the resolution to go out to bid or proposal. I think it's important to also remind everybody that Code Fairlife is just so off the charts of a project. Paul's not here, but I think we have $1.3 million of engineer estimate fees based on from them. We're okay, and we've been saying all along that we want to make sure we outsource certain specialties to make sure that this project is done above reproach.
Correct.
I think
project of this magnitude, what we're doing here, in my opinion, is imperative.
Yeah.
It really is for the protection of the residents, especially the neighbors, and to make sure that Code Fairlife is staying within compliance of what they need to do. So it's very, very important. So thanks for getting the quotes.
Yes, absolutely. It's a very unique project.
For sure.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I would move that we award the professional consulting services contract for the Town of Webster Fairlife Project Building Code Compliance Review Project to T.Y. Lin and authorize the town supervisor to approve and sign said contract.
Second.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Lynn? Aye. Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. Bridget, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't have that contract up on the website tied to this meeting.
Yeah, we'll put it up there.
And that leads into the next one, the intermunicipal agreement for sidewalks between the town and the village. This is something that really was worked out between Pat Stevens, or Josh, do you have explanation on this, or should I pinch it for Pat?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, because as you all know, for the last year, we do a monthly town-village leadership meeting. I think you guys, the town board, just saw the minutes from those.
Yep.
And this has been on the agenda for like the last 6 months. Charlie has been working with Don White, the village attorney. It's really a housekeeping issue. I don't really see where there's a financial impact to this. It's just kind of delineating that as you cross a border from the town to the village, who's taking care of that sidewalk, So I think that Jake Swingley, the DPW Commissioner of the Village, Pat Stevens, I think Chris Bilo got involved in this too, because they have the equipment for us with sidewalks. And, I don't know, Charlie, a lot to do in the last 6 months that led to, okay, with the two village and the town agree that that seems to be a good agreement between the two municipalities. That's my explanation. And it also is another agreement that I don't see why we'll just put it up on the website. It's, you know.
Well, I would move that we authorize the town supervisor to sign the intermunicipal agreement for sidewalks between the town and the village of Webster.
Second.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye. Well, John, you can make the motion, but do you want to explain this one?
Well, I'll let you do the explaining of this one.
First of all, I think it's great. Brent Harvey's in the room tonight, our new Director of Communications. Set up a place on the town website that is almost a real-time update of the EMS issue going on in Webster. And I like how it looks. I really do. We've gotten good feedback from the citizens. So within the process with EMS, since Neatwall's leadership executed their 90-day notice and exit from the contract they had with the town on December 29th, it's a little over a month ago. John Cahill is the EMS liaison, myself, Charlie is the town attorney. We've been in a lot of meetings with New York State EMS governance, Monroe County EMS governance, committee that John was on. Actually, I think you were one of the leaders of that committee, of local Monroe County EMS and some other county EMS,
Yes.
financial people, whatever. And so to make sure that we navigate this process so that the citizens of the town can feel comfortable when they call 911 that they're going to have an ambulance get to their house with as quick a response time as possible, with the best equipment of ambulances and all of that. This resolution is part of that process, is that our municipal authority that the town obtained, I think, Charlie, in the 2015 to 19 range, I know it was under appeal, but we have a certificate of need.
We received that actually January of 2020.
Right. And that certificate of need, gotten from the state of New York, really only covered BLS, basic life support, and transport. We leaned on Neatwall's Northeast Quadrant Advanced Life Support, our outsourced EMS agency, because they had the advanced life support, the ALS part of a certificate of need. With them exiting from the town, we have worked with the state and county, and long story short, we are applying to expand our authority as a municipal certificate of need from basic life support and transport, taking people to the hospital, to have our authority also be advanced life support. So we'll have really the whole spectrum of EMS authorities, which is going to make it much easier for us in the future to put together the best long-term EMS structure for the town. That's a long-winded explanation, but one of the check boxes to submit, which I think we're submitting tomorrow, and the report we're getting back from Milrems, Monroe County Livingston, is that this is very different from the 4-year slog to get the municipal certificate of need from the state. This regional council, they said about 2 to 4 weeks to approve it.
Right.
And John and I are working on what we can do dovetailing to March 1st on the assumption we'll have that expanded authority.
Right.
Wow. John?
It's not 9:30 yet.
That's all I got to say.
Well done. I would move that we apply to Monroe County Monroe Livingston Regional Emergency Medical Services, MLRN or REMS, for expansion of the town of Webster's EMS authority to include advanced life support.
Second.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
The next agenda item is, looks like it falls to me. As everyone knows, we're doing a lot of work down at the sewer treatment plant, and a lot of infrastructure and equipment is being torn out as we're replacing other things. It looks like all of these are part of our electrical work down there. And we are approving the assets for auction from the sewer department. It is 2 transformers, 4 line motor control centers, and a couple of panel boards. That's my motion.
Second.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda, I don't know, Tom, if you want to provide some explanation around this one, if it warrants it.
Explaining it?
So the current town assessor is out
Yes.
for an indefinite period of time right now due to an accident injury, and as a result, we're going through collecting taxes, need to look at our assessments. As Ron discussed, there's a lot of work that needs to take place in the assessor's office. So I would like to move or make a motion that we appoint Marisol Montalvo as the town of Webster acting assessor. She's the assistant assessor today. And she'll move in and act in that role until such time as Donna Comar's back in her position.
I'll second that motion.
Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Well, overdue.
Okay. Okay. Just for the record, we fully expect Donna Comar, our assessor, to be back. It's just that since it's an indeterminable amount of time she'll be out, business must go on. There's certain things that assessors do. We named the acting assessor. And I will just say one other thing is that there's no doubt we need to do a reval in this town. I think the last time it was done was 2004. Usually a town does it every 3 or 4 years. I have some ideas of why it wasn't done throughout the 2004 to 2020 timeframe in that administration, and why it hasn't been done the last 4 years in this administration, but we're working on that, getting that set up. But that is one of those things, Richard Harvey's here, you gotta have some great communication to the citizens 6 to 12 months before you pull the trigger on a refill. Side note.
Just to clarify too, there's no legal requirement for the refill.
No. It's supposedly a net sum zero game. It's just fairly spreading the taxes to property owners based on what the properties were. The last one tonight, I just want to say, we started at 8:50 with the open to the floor, and then these 13, and we're going to do this in less than a half an hour after you got past the public hearing. Not too bad.
We're
right?
efficient.
I gotta just say that this next one, pretty much housekeeping to set up the public hearing for this conveyance pipe project. And you'll notice that next week's town board workshop, we have the engineering firm Kostich is in to give a little more detail about this project, timelines, things of that nature. And we also have a presentation next week on a process we probably will be entering soon, Charlie, of amending the town code on how we have one-time entrant sewer fees to our sanitary sewer system. So I think next week's workshop is going to be very interesting for the board members and for the community. And it spawns off in a lot of ways this resolution we're about to do. Long story short, it looks as though this project, which is really the upsizing of the sewer mains from Tibor Road, where the Coke Fairlife facility will be, it's going to basically take the existing sewer mains that run around through the Xerox campus and hook into a 36 main on Phillips Road, and it's going to upsize them where needed to accommodate the flow that is going to be coming out of the Coke Fairlight plant when it is fully built and operational. I think there was very good foresight. I want to that there also is some aspects to it to look to the future from a standpoint of if there is development on the Xerox campus, that there would be ability to tie into those upsized mains for additional flow. But that'll go into more detail next week. So this, like I said, this is just to we have to do a public hearing for a bond proposal of this size for a municipal project like this. Correct, Charlie?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just. Does anybody have any questions? Probably TMI'd it more than I should have, but there you go. I make a motion to schedule a public hearing for February 22nd, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. here in the town board meeting room to consider a bond resolution in the amount of $7,100,000 for the Coca-Cola Fairlife Conveyance Pipe Project, and to publish notice of the public hearing in the February 7th, 2024 edition of the Webster Herald.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilwoman Cataldi?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn? Aye. Councilwoman Wright?
Aye.
And that concludes the
Before
formal...
we conclude.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Because we do
we
the round
got to do
table.
the round table? Then I will hold my comment for the round table, so I have
Alright.
one.
And we don't have too many people at the round table tonight. We have Josh is the only non-person on the dais. So go ahead, Josh.
Okay. Well, in addition to business as usual, we are currently compiling some statistical information for 2023 on the level of development and building activity that occurred last year. We are required to submit a report to Monroe County Planning and Development. They track all municipalities' development activity, so we're currently working on that. And I will say that construction has been able to continue given the relatively mild winter that we're experiencing, so we have remained quite busy.
Thanks, Josh. And one thing, I will say that Josh, and I think everybody's gotten to know him over his 4+ years at the town. We are navigating some open positions in his department, and I just can't thank Josh enough. Josh is a gamer. He doesn't complain. You know, he just gets the stuff done, and that's why I think it's very important we work with him and try our best to get those positions filled. But it's just a very interesting job market right now.
Yeah.
Man, is it weird. But anyway, thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Jim.
So, your comments about the motions, that you kind of like the liaisons doing that. I have to give Patty credit for that, because that was like my first meeting. Patty just said, well, you know, we kind of have the liaisons do their own motions, and I took that very literally, and I'm taking every single one of them.
Well, you're 1 month on the board. I think I'm 49 months on the board. Get used to saying, I gotta give Patty credit. You're gonna find yourself saying, I'll just leave it at that.
Not true.
I know I've heard you say that multiple times, and now here I am, just a few weeks in, saying the same thing. Thank you,
Yeah.
Patty.
Well, I'm not sure that the public really understands all the liaison duties that we have and just how involved we are in those departments by having that liaison duty. So we are very aware of every single motion that happens for those departments and why. My only other comment, and Supervisor Flaherty, you stole my thunder, was that I wanted to thank Josh for the exemplary job and all of the time that he has been putting into everything that he has been doing, and he's done a great job keeping all the balls in the air, and thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Charlie? I guess I'll jump on the bandwagon and thank people too. I'll thank Josh, and I'd like to thank Sula for all the work they've been doing on the Fairlight project on top of everything else they're doing.
Especially this week.
That has added an enormous, I don't think, again, people can talk about all the bonding and the various projects and agreements and things, but the bottom line is it's added a lot of, I'll say, work to the town. This is a very important project to the town. And it's, I think as Tom has used the phrase generational, it really is.
Sure.
Nothing since Xerox has hit Webster, maybe even Motor Valley, the last 50 years, like Fairlife. And, luckily we've had really top-notch people to guide us through, and that single out Josh for all his help on his end and what he's doing, and also the sewer people at sewer as well.
Should we thank them for the video that we received yesterday, them cleaning out the east side main and all the grit that they were pulling out of there?
That was fantastic. I've watched it 4 times now. None I was eating popcorn though.
Jenny?
Well, unlike Jan, you're lucky. You got a lot of people helping, stuff like that. I'm kind of like, starting on my own with it. At the end, I do have some help. I just wanted to say thank you for all the people that come in here today. And as a liaison for the Webster Museum and the Webster Library, I just want to encourage people to come out and support your community. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Jen?
So along with Josh, and Josh, you know how much I appreciate everything that you do. We have a smaller team now, but our team members have really stepped up. Art has really stepped up, and Pat Stevens is helping out a lot. So our team has gotten smaller, but the team members have really stepped up and coalesced and are working very, very, very hard, especially given this Fairlife. I like to see that everybody's very active and involved. And, Pat has his own project going on with the new highway garage. Pat's got Art has phase 3 of the sewage treatment plant. I mean, they have their own big projects, but they're still lending a hand with Fairlight. So it's very nice to see everybody come together.
Thanks,
What you do all day, I don't know. What you do all day, I don't know.
Kick my feet up and, you got me, Dolly. Really? Okay. Well, guess what? I pleasantly surprised we're getting out of here before 9:30. This meeting is